You drop out of school at what? 15?
Yeah, 14, 15.
14, 15.
Yeah, like ninth grade was the first year. Last year I finished, freshman year.
What was happening in school?
It was less school. It was more like I had kind of a fucked up situation at home. And I say that gently. Like our parents they're not like, like in the grand scheme of things, it was fine.
Yeah.
But it was like I was the one who had to like tell my dad, like, Dad, Mom's cheating on you.
Oh, wow. Oh, really?
Yeah. And like
you saw what happened?
It was like I had to tell my father that. And that's fucking weird and tough.
Yeah.
And then my mother really like blamed the kids in a very like classic, like after school special, like Hallmark movie kind of way, which was just fucked up. And then I just like, we all kind of did, but my sister had a car. Van, my older brother, was just in college. Dean was little, 3 years younger than me. Yeah. And I was just sort of like this weird stuck teenager. So it was just like full rebellion.
You were acting out in school a little bit.
Yeah, rebelling against her, rebelling against everything. Like I started like selling weed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I remember like I discovered weed. This is a fun little parenthetical here, a little tangent for us. But I like, first time I smoked weed, I was like, whew. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. And I was like, but let me get this straight. Like fucking paper route all week long for like a fucking this much. I was like, this is like not cost effective.
Yeah.
And then I remember we like all chipped in and we got a half an ounce. And I was like, mine was gone by Wednesday. Yeah. And my boy was like, mine's gone too, but I got more money. I'm buying more. And I was like, how'd you get more money? He's like, I sold half of mine. And I was like, how much you sell it for? And he's like, I sold it for 50. I was like, but you only chipped in 50. And he's like, yeah, but, and I was like, oh. And I started like doing the math. And I start, start doing the math. And I'm like, okay. So you're telling me, if I buy a half a pound, I can get a 1,600% return on that if I'm selling it.
That's really
eighths.
good math for a dropout.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I was just fucking making bank. And how I did is like, the house we lived in, everybody slept on the second floor. My bedroom was on the first floor.
Oh, so you were free.
So I had a pager. So they'd park a block away.
Yeah. This is old school drug dealing.
Yeah, and they I open my window. This is like cranking the window to my parents' house. Like this. They come up to the window and be like, yo, it's good. And they'd be like, you got that eighth? And I'm like, yeah. And like, I remember I always show them the scale. Because
you were doing it from the crib?
Yeah, from my bedroom.
Out the window like at McDonald's.
Wait, this is your parents' house or this after you dropped out?
No, my parents' house was the trap this is like, house, look, like fine. my parents like
your parents in the trap house. That's fine.
My parents are like, they're like going through shit. Like they don't have time. Like they're fucking. My dad, like I'm the poor guy. My dad's a great guy. My mother's fucked up shit in the house. Nobody's paying attention to my like operation out of the bedroom window. In any event, that was one of the ways I was acting out, and like I had some degree of financial freedom because like, I had like under the water bed was hella loot, like I was good, and then just got in a lot of trouble at school, like a lot of fighting, like really? To this day, like these are all teeth scars on my knuckles from
Really?
What's your record? Are you pretty good?
No, it was just like, I got picked on. I was like a little kid who was fucking weird looking. I got into a lot of fist fights. Like kids would pick on me. Yeah. Or, like kids would people would like beat me for weed. Like I'd give them the weed, they wouldn't give me the money.
Oh,
like
fuck.
You got two choices when that happens. You shut it down, or you're like the guy that people can steal from.
So you had to shut it down.
I had to shut it down. Damn. And I was little.
But you had to learn how to fight.
I could fight.
So you were fucking people up in Connecticut or what?
I mean, it was like it's a stretch. You're like talking about kids who barely hit puberty, like fighting in the backyard in the back parking lot and stuff.
Nah, those count.
Those count. Alex is 7 and 4, and like 8 of those fights are all in the backyard. It's
under the age of 12.
Nah, I hit puberty.
Yeah.
They hadn't, but he had.
But no, so it was like it was rough, and then like finally like I got in a lot of trouble in school. Like something really bad happened.
Can you talk about it?
I think it was either a fight or when they caught me smoking weed in the bathroom, and it was like a 10-day suspension, and it was also like you're allowed 5 suspensions or 30 detentions, and you get thrown out of school. I had 29 detentions at that point in time. It was like my 6th suspension, and I just remember my mom being like. Either you live by my rules or you get out of this house. And I remember just like I know what you're doing.
Yeah, you can't tell me.
Like if it was my dad saying that, it would have been such. Like I remember my dad when he gave me the drug talk when he found out like me and my friends tried acid once. Like to this day, I've done acid once when I was like 13, And after my dad talked to me about it, it was such an effective talk.
Oh, wow.
He was like, you know my friend, I'm changing the guy's name for his, you know my friend Chris? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you know how he is? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, after he graduated high school, he spent the whole summer doing acid in the basement, and that's why he's like that. And I was like, I will never. And like, that's good. That was like solid. But it was like coming from her at that moment, and I was like, fine, I'm out.
But you respect your dad a lot.
Yeah. And like, I was like, I'm out. And I remember I had like a hardcover book under the waterbed, like under the bubble. That was filled up with money, so I'd keep it flat. And I was like $9,000 or $10,000 in there.
So you were flush.
And I just like shoved it in my pocket. I took my box fan. I can't sleep without like a fan on me.
Yeah.
And I just like walked out. And like walked down the street. It's like a teenager. Just like left, like 9 o'clock at night on a Monday.
No car,
no cell phone.
nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
So where you go? You go see...
I went to like, I remember his name was Ethan, this kid down the end of the street. There were a couple of Ethans, like this kid, and I like called him from the payphone. I was like, can I stay with you? And he has like hippie parents. He's like, yeah, you can come sleep over. And I stayed at his house for 2 nights. And like there was this other kid, Dan, who he also sold a lot of weed, and his mother used to like steal his weed. She didn't give a shit. And I was like, can I stay with you? He was like, yes. And I stayed with him for a few days. And then I met these 2 girls who were like 18. They had their own apartment.
Oh, shit.
And like, you can stay with us, no drug dealing, and you got chipping on rent. And I was like, I got money. And I was like, I guess I should stop doing drugs anyways. So I like moved in with them.
So you rizzed 2 18-year-old girls to the point where they just let you move in?
Yeah, and then like 30 seconds later, one of them was pregnant.
Gang.
Like immediately. Immediately.
The Daily Hog.
Like not joking. Like
hold on, you knocked up.
Immediately.
And you were how old?
Immediately. At that time I was 15, yeah.
And she was 18?
Yeah.
Respect.
Bro.
What was like your personal reflection?
Hold on.
Wait.
So you're sleeping with one of them.
Yeah.
Does the other one know? Does she hear it in the night? Just fucking like.
Yeah, I mean, I was like 15. That sound never happened.
What?
It was like, a second, sometimes a glance.
I'm
Sometimes
sorry.
It was eye contact.
I
It was just a lot of.
My bad.
Your dick was a boosted board,
right.
bro. You get there quick.
It was like, was that it? Like there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that. But
Okay.
like, no, we had a great relationship. Like I liked her.
Yeah.
She was awesome. She was cool. She was like a really independent, strong-willed girl whose parents had like she had been on her own since she was young too.
Oh, wow.
And she was just like a G. She worked hard. She was like, I had a job then washing dishes because I wasn't doing drugs anymore. She was like driving to work every day. And like, we didn't know she was pregnant. But like you can start at the end and then work back.
Yes.
And I'm not joking when I say like it was within weeks.
Now,
of meeting each other.
was that like tricky to get to that point? Did you hit on her? Like, were you like, oh yeah, this is awesome? How do you cross that threshold?
Yeah.
Because you're homeless.
Yeah.
So you're already grateful.
Yeah.
You know what I
And then
mean?
you bang your landlord.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
What is that like?
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
This pussy around.
I'm just saying. That's pretty awesome.
I haven't thought in those terms in a long time because it's like she uniquely doesn't like she represents like my son's mother and this woman that I've had this fantastic relationship with for 26 years now, and she's this wonderful person that I know. So I've never really thought of her in those terms because like she was this like hot teenager and I was this kid for like this much of our life, and then for this much of our life, we're just like adults together sharing this responsibility of being parents. So I never get to think in those terms, but like, back then it was like you're a teenager, you're just learning about girls or like hot girls in high school.
You were a virgin
and
at that time? Was that your first time having sex?
No, but it was, wasn't far from that. It wasn't far from that. I was only 15. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like it was very.
First time having sex to pregnancy?
It was close, but it wasn't the first time.
Okay.
There were like some fun parties where like silly shit happens before that, but like there was no. I was not by any means experienced. I didn't know what was
in Connecticut. I had to move you out.
I didn't know what was going on. Like looking back at it, like in the immediate aftermath, like when she was pregnant, like how did this happen? And it was like, oh no, I definitely know how this happened.
Yeah, right.
Like you realize like this is like not to take it from this fun bro conversation to get real, but it's like the importance of sex ed. I am dead fucking serious right now. They need to teach kids. I had no clue
that.
You didn't know where babies came from?
I knew where babies came from, but it was like,
What'd you think?
She's not gonna get pregnant. You know, like I literally remember thinking that.
I think you need sex ed.
Like, I had none. Like I was a kid. I was a kid. Like none of it made sense to me. Like I was just a kid. Like obviously, when I'm in my 20s and I'm single, it's all very vivid and
yes.
But like young people have sex without any understanding of what the actual consequences are.
We thought the pull-out method was like 100%.
Oh, 100%. And I would pull out after I finished. Like I didn't, none of it. I understood none of it.
You did the backwards way.
Yeah, I understood none of it. And
They teach you in sex ed, that's the most fun.
It's like
I didn't get to that class.
The sex ed, I remember like Connecticut public school education, we had like, you know, like 1 day a year dedicated towards sex ed. And it sounds silly, but like the time frame from like kissing girls to being like, yo, I got to touch her boobs, like that point in your immaturity in your relationship with women, to me literally having a girlfriend be pregnant, that was like, we're talking about months. You know, it's not a long time. And like, I wasn't dumb. I just had no idea. And that part I remember. Like, and that's more like reflecting back as a parent and as a mature adult. Like, I remember as I entered my 20s in New York City and I was actually single and I started like a normal life with girls and dating and sex and shit like that. It was obviously like super clear how things work. But for that like short window of time, and I know like a lot of people that were like around my age and my like fucked up part of the world who like also got girls pregnant and either had kids or
also,
didn't.
Parents are
like,
terrified to explain
parents
shit to their kids
I'm
about
terrified
sex.
to talk to my daughters about it. My wife is like a hero about it.
Yeah.
How did you feel when she told you? Were you scared in that moment?
Weirdly, like, no. And I look back at that, and like, much credit to her. She's really like an exceptional human being. She's a very strong, super smart, like tough, independent woman. But she was terrified. And I remember like one time she was crying, and I was like, why are you crying? I was like, we're gonna have a kid, this is gonna be fine. And like looking back at that, who the fuck was I to say that?
Yeah.
I was like 16, she was like driving me to my dishwashing job in like a 1988 Ford Taurus that had mismatched color, like door panels on the outside that wasn't registered. And we only had enough gas money to get me to and from work. We could not drive anywhere else or we'd like run out of gas. And like, we're gonna be fine, we're golden. And no, I think then for me, it was such like a vivid thing that was, like I was like, drop out, drug dealer, fuck up. And it was like, no, here's how I can do good. This is like—
Being a parent.
Yeah,
this is your opportunity.
This is my key. Like, this is what's gonna like fix it.
Then you can maybe be a better parent.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly what happened.
It gave you what? Focus, determination?
Yeah. It's like the minute you have a child, you sort of externalize your priorities where it's like, it's not about
you.
me.
Yeah.
It's about this like amazing thing, this child, this kid.
Cool.
But that's not the only time that you're broke.
I know, still broke.
But then you go on to have some success. So you move out of
The
Connecticut.
success was that, like, it was still many years,
Right.
like years and years and years away, or like a decade away.
Because
from that
the
moment.
baby's born, what, 97, 96?
Yeah.
And then when do you go live with Van?
So this gets a little nuanced, but like she was pregnant the entire time we moved to live with Van. So what happened was my brother Van was in college at William & Mary in Virginia. We lived in Connecticut. And like she and I really started to like each other. We're in it together. We didn't know she was pregnant. And we let's get the fuck out of here. She got into sort of a little tiff with her girlfriend who was the roommate, and she was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I was like, I got nothing holding me down, let's go. So we ran away. We moved to Virginia where my brother Van was in college. And he lived in this flop house. We had a room in the flop house. He had to adopt me, my brother Van.
Oh, wow, like legally.
Yeah.
So
you could go to school and shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't of age, I was only 15.
Yeah.
So he had to adopt me. That's a fucked up story.
Why?
Well, one, we had to go in front of a judge. He's fucking 21. I'm 15. We had bleached our hair the day before. We thought we'd look handsome.
Like Backstreet Boys?
Yeah, but we put the bleach in our hair, then we put hairnets over, like plastic, like shower caps over, and we went to Golden Corral because we were hungry. Yeah. But we didn't know you're not supposed to leave it in there that long, so our fucking scalps are bleeding, and we washed out, half our hair fell out, so we go in there with like flaming red scalps with white translucent fucking polar bear looking hair.
Yeah.
And we're wearing suits that we got at like the thrift store, like don't fit us. And then the judge is like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And we had a good story.
Which was?
Which was like, I just want to go to school. And this is the only way I can go to school. And I remember she was like, all right, well, against my better judgment, I will grant you this.
Wow.
That is not the last time a judge used that verbiage with me.
Can you
what do you
tell
mean?
that story, please?
That one is in the distant future, but we can get to that.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
Oh, so
But then, like,
Van's your dad.
Yeah, and
That's
then when we
crazy.
get into
Did
the parking lot,
Did he make you call him dad a little
no,
bit?
that's fucking weird. But when we got into the
What about daddy?
when we got into the parking
Big
lot,
Daddy?
I just remember Van was like, couldn't get his lighter to work, and he's like trying to get his lighter to work to light my Winston cigarette. And he finally was like, got it. Look up, and the judge is standing there. And he just lit my cigarette, and we're like, thanks. Like, go get in our fucking Hyundai
Ideal
Excel
guardian.
before we totaled
Your Honor.
it
Yeah.
and left.
Bro, that's wild.
Okay, so you're living in Virginia for a little bit.
And then it became like clear that she was pregnant. Yeah. And it was like, you can't live in nobody said that to us, but it was like, we can't live in a fucking flop house.
Right.
And it was like also like ourselves, like we couldn't deny it anymore.
Right.
Like we had sort of knew, but it was like the idea of someone being pregnant when you're that young is like unfathomable. Like neither of us could comprehend that that was real.
Yeah.
What's a flop house? I never heard that.
So this was literally called the Hippie House, and it no longer exists on the campus of William & Mary, but it was like a big, huge Victorian house that was kind of fucked up, but it had like 19 bedrooms in it. So everybody would just chip in a couple $100, and all of a sudden you could afford this gigantic house.
Gotcha.
And like, you know, the nicer the bedroom, the more expensive it was. But like 8 people lived in the attic, you just got like a spot that was like $100 a month. And on campus.
A frat house with hippies.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's now, the university bought it. It's not like one of the administrative buildings. I went back years ago and it was like heartbreaking. Yeah, but that's where we lived.
Okay, so you guys moved back to...
We moved back to Connecticut and we moved in with like her cousin who had 4 kids of her own. Very nice people. They were just looking after us.
Yeah.
We had nowhere to live. And we lived in their basement, an unfinished like concrete basement. Yeah, it was fucking gnarly.
But you never lost self-confidence. You always were like,
No,
yeah,
I was
this
like,
is fine.
cool. I remember like I got a job washing dishes for $8 an hour, which was like $2 more than I'd ever been paid for washing dishes.
So you were just
and
balling.
I remember I came home and like the dad, like her cousin's husband, he was like, how did the interview go? And I was like, I got the job, $8 an hour. And I was expecting him to be like, my man. And instead, I just saw the look of terror. Because he's an adult father.
Yeah.
He was like, if you work 100 hours a week, you might be able to afford groceries, was like the look on his face. And I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
But no, at $8 an hour, I was like, fucking got it.
You never thought about selling
Got
drugs
it.
again? Selling weed again? You never thought about it?
No, like that was, no.
Too risky.
Yeah, and it was also just like the child was a pivot point. It was like I was psyched to like prove that I was like good now.
Okay, so you're back in Connecticut. When do you make that move to New York?
After she dumped me, which was like we lived in a really dumpy apartment that was dope, that was great, but it was like $300 a month, $400 a month in Connecticut, in part of Connecticut. And then I remember we bought some real estate. I was waiting for that. I was like, you're just setting up you're setting up the pins right now, and I'm ready to bowl a strike. We bought a trailer that we were able to park on a piece of land. The trailer was $12,000 that we were able to get a mortgage on. So our mortgage on that trailer was like $110 a month. And then to rent the piece of land that we parked our caravan on was $200 a month. So it cost us less monthly to live in like a mobile home. And that's where we lived,
Holy shit.
But then it meant I could walk to work because it was closer to
So you didn't have to spend any money on gas.
so we lived in like this trailer park, this like caravan park, and it was not bad living.
Yeah.
But I will say like, there's a line in Juicy about like no heat on Christmas Day. Like one morning we woke up it was Christmas morning, and like the heater for our trailer had completely fried. And like we had woke up Christmas morning, it was like fucking freezing. But eventually she dumped me.
Why?
I mean,
You had so much going for you. You're making $8 an hour.
she dumped, well, I was up to like 9 and change by then.
You own real estate?
She dumped me for all the right reasons.
Okay.
And I thank the Lord every day that she did dump me, because it was the kick in the ass that I needed. And I like moved in with the cook at the restaurant, who was also a single dad.
Yeah.
I like lived in his condo with him. And then like I started coming into New York on Metro North to see Van, to see my brother. He This is a fun story. But he had to drop out of William & Mary because my mother spent his tuition money on a new car.
Oh, wow.
Did you crash it?
So I was never allowed to drive it. But I would have. But yeah, of course. So Van moved to New York City, and like New York City was like, for me as a child, like some kids had like the fucking Testarossa or the Countach poster, Kathy Ireland poster. I had like the New York City poster. Like I obsessed over the city.